on the heels of Jupiter moving into Gemini, where Jupiter is going to expand our whispers into roars, I would love to share the stories of Asha Frost and how she found her roar. Before we dive in, if you want to be notified whenever a new video drops, hit that subscribe button. If you already have, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for supporting this channel, Star Powered with Leslie Tagorda. That's me. Welcome to Star Powered Astrology for Changemakers. I'm Leslie Tagorda, your guide, a Hawaii-born Filipino Jewish astrologer who loves navigating visionaries like you through the spiritual journey of your work so that you can be inspired to lead by your chart and become the luminary leader you were born to be. All right, welcome, luminary, to another episode of Star Powered. And I have one of my most beautiful favorite guests. You probably already know her, Asha Frost, Indigenous Medicine Woman, international best-selling author of You Are the Medicine and the Sacred Oracle deck. She's guided thousands of people through her profound and lasting transformations as a healer, homeopath, ceremonial guide, and as a prominent speaker in the field of Indigenous healing. Well, she is all of that, and I am so grateful that I get to call you, Asha, my friend. Welcome back.
Thank you. One of my favorite spaces to be.
Oh my goodness. I feel like every time I want to always share like our roots of our story from the time we met in Houston. We've traveled so far on this healing journey in terms of finding our voices. But today I wanted to come on because you have some amazing things happening in your work with your
Mm.
books and your decks. And I just wanted to share your story about how you came to find your voice.
Oh, I love that. Well, even from when we met, I feel like my voice has changed and transmuted and evolved as we do, because I think we're always doing that. So, when I consider myself a sensitive being, and when I was small, everybody labeled me as shy, very shy, and it was true. I felt the world intensely, and I was probably fairly introverted. And I wouldn't say a lot, but I did observe a lot, and I took a lot in, and I had a lot to say in my heart. There was a lot to say in my spirit. I felt a lot of connection to my ancestors. So there were a lot of words there, but perhaps I was waiting for the right places and spaces to share them. The spaces maybe that would hold them with reverence or even hear me. And I tend to still be that way in some ways in my life. But that was my childhood. And so my voice felt soft and gentle, and people will still say, "You are so gentle yet powerful." It's such an interesting explanation of my medicine in the world. But I think it comes from that place of observing and taking in and reflecting a lot, and then having the wisdom come from that place. So over the years, it took me a while to feel confident enough to have that wisdom that was really rooted in my heart bubble up, and then feel like I was worthy enough, that I could take up space, that as an Indigenous woman, there was space for me, that there were ears that would hear me. That has been a journey for a very long time. That has been a constant evolution as things have changed in our landscape as well. For a long, long time, Indigenous voices have been suppressed and oppressed. So this has been a collective journey, and I think an individual journey. And it was in the last, I'd say 10 years or so, that something really woke up inside of me, where I felt that fire or that spark or that initiation, as I think many of us do, that somehow the wisdom I'd held in my heart and my soul, it needed a vehicle or a place to be expressed. And I think we all have this in some way, because that's why I say you are the medicine. You carry a vibration, a presence, a power that is meant to be shared with the world. And that vibration is meant to go out there and reach the hearts and land in the beings of those who are meant to hear it. So I felt that very strong call about 10 years ago. And that's where everything started to kind of, I'd say, explode and come out of me finally.
Oh my goodness. I just hearing that pathway, I'm like, oh, me too, me too, me too, right? Maybe because we're both projectors, our voices aren't these like the loudest or the boomiest voices that like carry. And what you were saying in terms of like, not feeling worthy, like even though you had thoughts like, like, could I speak up? Was I allowed to speak up? Is anybody going to value or believe what I had to say? And am I allowed to speak up? Like having space to speak up, like as a brown woman, a girl growing up, like we didn't see people that were speaking up that look like us. And so all of these kinds of like threads to like unravel about why we hadn't spoke up, even though there was like so many things, so many thoughts, so many ideas, so much wisdom going through there. Thank you for sharing that, because I feel like that is my story, and I'm sure that's a lot of people's stories.
Yeah, when I share about that, you do hear this resonance, or you do feel this sense of my voice was oppressed too, or I didn't feel that worthiness. And I think I've inquired or investigated this feeling of entitlement. Like, what does it mean for me to feel entitled to share my voice, to have, even if my voice is the softest in the room, to know that it has impact, it has presence, and that I do deserve to share that. So, yeah, I love that we have that resonance with one another too.
Well, when did you said 10 years ago something sparked for you and you just had something to share. Can you remember like what happened in that spark where you're like, I can't be silent anymore?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it has to do, I wrote about it in my book with that Dear White Woman letter, that it was like a catalyst or an initiation of bringing what had been in my body. And I explain it as like a rattling or a shaking in my body to words to be spoken. That was something that felt like it was needing to be spoken. So I don't think everybody needs to have this huge, big feeling that they have to, write this huge letter that goes viral necessarily. But that was really a moment of, I can remember viscerally in my body, somatically feeling like that. So I think that's something that everybody can relate to. Maybe when we shake or we feel shaky, or maybe when we feel like there's something that's been held in, that's gathering up within us. I think we all can locate that somewhere in our body. And perhaps it's a combination of the stars aligning, your ancestors dreaming it for you, listening to the ancestral calls that then pushes you forward. And I believe that we all probably have those moments in our lives.
Well, you share something really important with, so I think was that letter that you penned, was that in 2018? Yeah,
Yes.
20, because I we met in 2019 for the
Right.
writers workshop, the
Right.
Diverse Wisdom Initiative. And I remember you sharing your story about that letter and how it was like so thought-provoking. And it did go viral at that time. And for listeners who are new to this, Asha Frost wrote several books now, or a book and a deck, and at the time had this like beautiful like social media presence. And you wrote a social media post called Dear White Woman. And do you want to recap what you said in Dear White
Yeah.
Woman?
So it was called Dear White Woman Who Wants to Be Like Me. And this was as a result of being in spaces and places where non-Indigenous folks would say things like, oh my goodness, I was, a Cherokee princess in a past life. You're so lucky to be you. And I wish I had a status card. And or they would wear Indigenous clothing and earrings and medicine bags and boots and hats and um, in just different ways that even I would just stop and reflect and think, why do I not feel worthy of wearing those things? Or they would do our teachings in circles. And I think, how come I don't even feel like I can do that? So I started realizing, oh my goodness, all of this trauma that I'd carried as an Indigenous woman. And then all these white women were sharing these things that I didn't even feel entitled to. There was a disconnect there somewhere along the way. And I just felt like I had to speak to it. So it basically asks you if you're willing to take on the earrings and the feathers and the hats and the boots, will you take on the trauma? Will you also take on what I carry in my bones and my blood and all other Indigenous people carry? Will you carry a piece of that with you? Will you do the work to learn the history and know it? Will you show up in these spaces and advocate for our voices? So it was really an invitation to hold it all.
Yeah. And I think when, like, as somebody who's tried to talk about privilege to other people, when we talk about people's unrecognized privilege and they're not really ready to receive that, there can be a whole ton of backlash that happens along with like the support. And so how did you face that? Because we're getting used to like amplifying and sharing our voice, but like sometimes I know I don't, because I'm afraid to ruffle some feathers, and you lived through that.
Mhm. Yeah, and it was very unplanned. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready, first of all, because I wrote it as a blog on my website that nobody really read. Like at the time, yes, I had social media presence, but it was people that I'd known in person, mostly my community from doing healing work and circles. So they knew me, they knew my heart, and I wasn't too afraid to share it with them. I believed they would probably get it a little bit. But when it went viral, my nervous system was not ready to receive all of the backlash. So, which is how I know, yes, I walked through that fire and yes, it was worth it. And yes, I'm still here. I didn't die. It didn't take me down. All of those really innate fears that we have around speaking and sharing and standing for something, I get it because they're rooted in something really animal. Our animal bodies really remember that. My animal body wasn't ready for that. And I somehow cultivated some resilience and courage and a even stronger voice from that experience. So I share that because I know that we are fearful. Sometimes we sit in this fear of, oh, I can't do that. It would be too much. It might kill me or I might
Yeah.
die. That's really how it feels. But when you walk through the fire, it's so rewarding because the people then who come to you, I still have Indigenous women from different parts of the Turtle Island or the world that say, you spoke that for me too. You
Mm.
from different heritages and traditions, you spoke that for me too. I felt seen in your words. And that's how many years later, so many years later, and they still say that. And that makes me just feel like, okay, if someone feels seen that has been historically oppressed, then that is worth it.
Oh, I like just hearing you say, "Oh, you spoke for me too. You spoke for me too." It's like you're giving like a world, like to so many people, a voice. Like sometimes, like we can't even put to words our own feelings, and so when we hear somebody else say it, we're like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly how I was feeling. That's so beautiful." Thinking about this. Your path, right? Like writing this piece that really put you into the spotlight. And fast forward, how many years is that? Fast forward another 7 years now.
Yeah.
Do the quick math. Your that 7 year, that like a quarter of a Saturn cycle. Saturn is the planet of maturity. Um, and we can see our successes in 7 years. Your success has blossomed into this amazing speaking and author career.
Mhm.
How did,
Yeah, when you put it like that, right? It's something to be celebrated and also a lesson because I will say that those months, actually for one whole year, and I've shared this before, I could not open my emails and I was frozen to even go into my DMs because I did not know what was on the other end of those. And it was people who were angry, people who would share their life story. They write me novels and novels of like why, like defending themselves and wanting me to be the one that said, it's okay, you can do this. It was a lot. So, and on the other end of that, there's so much beauty, so much alignment with what I'm here to do now. Mostly it's speaking engagements that I love, and I feel so aligned with how my business has opened up in this way. So I can say that it might be uncomfortable. You might have to walk through some discomfort in those years where that spark and that fire is turning into words and speaking. And I think it also paves this huge path of beauty and awe and radiance and alignment. So that's been my experience, at least.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, since like in that last 7 years, you've written a book. You are the
Mhm.
medicine. It's like the 13 moons are so
Mhm.
beautiful. You've written one card deck.
Mhm.
And I remember seeing you this past March in Phoenix for the Hay House conference, and you did this most beautiful session with a full like conference room, people just coming to tears because of your teachings.
Mhm.
What next do you have in store with your amazing
Yeah. So I have
message?
a new deck that's called the Animal Elders Oracle that is coming out in December, but it's available for pre-order right now. And it is one thing that I really wanted to have. That probably would have been my first project. Like, if I really dreamed something like this is what I really have always wanted a spirit animal deck, but it's come into fruition at the perfect timing for me, I think. So, it's 44 beautiful animals sharing their eldership messages and wisdom and medicine with the world. And then I have this glorious artist that's from similar lands that I'm from. So the artwork is really aligned with my home territories and who I am. And I love it.
Oh my goodness. Asha, you are just so wonderful. It's like such a guiding light for all of us, your path and your journey and all of like the ups and downs, because this hasn't been an easy road for you to get this deck in the way that you wanted it to exist in the world, right?
No, it would have been a lot easier to just, yeah, there been way more easier ways to do this. So yeah, it's definitely been a learning experience. I'd say like, I think people can have projections and perceptions of, I know I've heard different people saying, oh, she got all this because she wrote this one letter, not knowing that behind the scenes, I've been in business for 20 years and doing all the things and working really hard and having failures and losses and gains and successes and all the things that happen on this journey as an entrepreneur. So it's never been a straight line up. It's always had those lessons in that evolution.
One thing I want to ask, like one like really think like, because I know you on a personal level, and I know like just how much you've had to learn how to advocate for yourself, to be the warrior for your voice, for your message. What's like the biggest thing that you learned about speaking up for yourself as an Indigenous woman?
Ooh, the biggest thing I think I've learned about that is that what I mentioned before is I'm not only speaking for myself, like that's what buoys me forward, that's what pushes me forward. When I have the courage to say something, because I think for so long, as many of us hold this, I want to people please, I want people to like me on the other end. Also, when we speak up, we have this huge fear of loss and losing things that are important to us. And that I'm human, I've had that too. But after speaking, it feels like my voice goes forward 7 generations and back generations, 7 generations back. So it's healing the past, healing the future. That's what I've learned from it. And I can't go back from that now that I know that.
Oh my gosh. Like there's the impact is so vast that once you speak up, like you can never go back to silencing or whispering again.
So true.
True. Well, I wanted to bring Asha onto this conversation because we have something cooking up for you. We've had a couple of collaborations before, and it feels like whenever we come together, we put this like not a persona, but there's this energy that we wear when we're together as the medicine woman as and the wayfinder. And we want to bring something to this world so that we can help our participants, our listeners, the people who want to go on this experience to really amplify their whispers into roars.
Yeah. And I have to say, because Leslie was part of my membership for 2 years, I think, at least. And one of just the most favorite parts because of the light that you carry, the sparkle and the essence and energy and presence that you hold. So I know this is going to just spark magic. And as we really have created this as an experience so that almost an embodied experience, a spiritual experience, a heart-led experience, so that you are moved, you are touched, and from that, forward movement happens, I believe.
Yes. Well, I love this idea of the experience or the journey because you and I were talking. Well, first Jeff. If you know Jeff, Jeff is my right hand person, my second in command, and Jeff's putting together all the information for our upcoming project together. And he was like asking me all these questions. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the answers to these questions. And one of his questions is, what inspired us to work together on this project that we're calling Roar?
Hmm. I always go back to that first meeting of seeing you and knowing that somehow our star medicine aligned. I don't know what that is, but it is some sort of co-creation that our souls are meant to do. We come apart, we come together. And I feel like I love the star medicine that you offer to people. And I love the wisdom and medicine that gets shared in that way. And I think it really is a beautiful weaving of the medicine that I share. So I think we can do like the medicine of the sky and the stars and the ancestors that are there, mixing it with the medicine of the land and the earth and the plants and the animals. I think that's the most beautiful way to learn something is all of creation is joining us.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So to me, when we put together, so our project is called Roar, and it's going to be for 4 Fridays
Mhm.
starting on May 31st. And if you're interested in learning more, you can go to starpowered.com/roar, ROAR. And really being inspired by star medicine, animal medicine, plant medicine, our ancestors. um Generally when I'm developing a course for astrology, a teaching for astrology, I'm like, okay, what's the objective? What do I want to have people learn? What are they going to experience? All of these things. But when we were coming together, we're like, we just both decided that was a very like colonial way of thinking, that you're going to have this X kind of outcome, because Ash and I, we don't have that control over having control of what your experience is going to be. And so as we were putting together this offering and the curriculum for this, we imagined all of us, on our different paths and our different journeys, and we're coming together for this 4 weeks. Our paths intersect together. Maybe you need some support in finding your voice or believing in your voice, or maybe you want to join us on our 4 week journey. There's this kind of just this intersection where it's not a beginning or an end. We're coming together for 4 weeks, weaving things together, and then moving off on separate ways, just like what you said, Asha. We come together, we like go back to our different worlds, come back together again. It feels so beautiful to think of it just like we're meeting together along our journey.
Yeah, I love that. And Indigenous ways of being and knowing everything's in a cycle or a circle. So we think about things not necessarily so linearly, where it's like, this is a beginning, this is an end, this is the outcome. Yes, we want to have beautiful outcomes and shifts and transformation. And I would love that for this space. I believe in that for this space because we have this alchemy and the medicine keepers that both of us are. So I think we are going to create that. And I envision people who in most of my communities, what I hear people saying is like, you know, what would happen if I shared my voice and somebody tears it down? Or who am I to say this? Or I'm not good enough to even have a platform. Do I have a space to take up all the things I sort of talked about that I've gone through and Leslie has resonated with as well? I can see those folks being called in to have your message maybe start to be shared in a new way or a way that feels like, oh my goodness, this is aligned for me.
Yes. And it's aligned also in like the star medicine, because
Mhm.
we're approaching Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, the planet of belief, the planet of our purpose and our vision and exceeding our expectations. And like Jupiter just is this great amplifier. And Jupiter is going to be leaving Taurus and moving into Gemini. And Gemini is about expression, understanding, sharing our wisdom, cross pollinating our voice. And so, as we get ready for this like great shift, so that we can be our thought leaders, we can share our wisdom in the world, like, why not harness this energy of Gemini to roar? And we pick this word roar as the name of our offering together, our journey together, because roars are powerful. How do you see roars, Asha?
Oh my goodness. Just like what we were talking about, like making an impact, making a ripple. It echoes, it can echo, right? And I love the thought of an echo that you have your own heart space, you share it, and then it just ripples out to so many people. I love the thought of a roar. And also how you mentioned, yeah, it's not just lions that roar.
Not just lions, so much, so many of like the Ojibwe animals roar, like deers roar, bison, cattle's roar, even like monkeys and whales and sea lions roar.
It's so amazing. So yeah, I really see this. I love how you've just described this time because it feels like a perfect amplifier for those who are looking for how to bring that flame, that fire, that desire inside into the world in a more expanded way, even a remembered way. I always talk about the remembering. Like I think there's a lot of us that remember how to use our voices. Maybe our ancestors didn't have that capacity, they didn't have the space to, and they're behind us for this time too, saying, please be the one to share because I couldn't.
My goodness. Just thinking about like as we learn to roar, we're not just roaring for ourselves, as you said, we're roaring for the seven generations behind us, and we're roaring for the seven generations ahead of us. Ooh, that I just love that visual. When I of course my Saturn is in Gemini, so I had to go look up roar and learn everything that it, you know, like what kind of animals roar, what makes a roar, what is a roar, why do animals roar? I did all my like little research there. But when it comes down to it, when we boil it down, a roar is a communication, a vocalization of a message that goes beyond loud, right? Because both Asha and I were 2-4 projectors for whatever reason. Like we have these like really soft, gentle voices. You're not going to hear us in in a giant stadium, but there's 4 qualities that make a roar. So a roar is number one, it's resonant, meaning
Mm,
that animals can learn how to use the humidity, the climate, the time of the day, the stillness of water to create a frequency that will reverberate and resonate and ring in its rich vibration to get into the ears of their beings, their people, their folks. And so I find like, isn't that so cool that animals know how
so
to do
cool.
this?
I love this. And we do too, right? We are animals too. So it's maybe we've forgotten or been disconnected from those roars. So I love that so much. And I love a vision of having all of these remembered animal beings, you know, in our circle, learning to find their resonance.
Their resonance. The second quality of a roar is that it's deep. It's deep
Mm,
in its sonority, it's deep in its richness and its tone, but it's also deep in its meaning
mm.
because different animals use different roars to communicate different messages.
Ooh, that is so powerful to me. And I think we're going to be working a little bit around that, around really finding what that core energy and message is, or as I would say, what your medicine gift or your medicine wisdom is to share. I think that's an important part of the roar.
The deep richness. The third part of that, of what aurora is that it's sustained, that it has
Mm,
longevity, that it has that lasting, embedded communication. So, you know, thinking about what you were mentioning about the seven generations back and forth, that there's just the longevity of this message of that wisdom that we're sharing.
I love that.
I feel
So
that
profound.
like especially in your work and a lot of my work, a lot of it's like it comes from deep within. It wasn't something that we were taught at school. It comes from like this remembrance in our bones, right?
Oh, definitely. Or dream time or in our sacred waters. Like, yeah, it's there, it's floating already. And I think that we've been colonized, all of us have been colonized from that way of knowing and being. So in our space, that is going to be right at the forefront. This is a place where we can play and practice that, remembering in our bones, connecting to our roots, feeling that wisdom that has always been there and letting it flow.
Mm, that's so beautiful. And then the fourth one. So if we have resonant, deep,
Mhm.
sustained, and this is now it reaches, it
Mm.
echoes. Our message where it's sustained, where it can last a long time, but now it goes far. It travels the distance so that it echoes into the future. Um, so is that like just like when I think about Aurora and those four qualities, it's like I want my voice to be like that.
Oh, it is like that. But yes, I hear you. And I think that we can create and play with that, right? I think I want my voice to be like that too. I think that really brings meaning to the roar and it brings like an integrity or yeah, something really beautiful to the roar. So thank you for sharing those with me.
Oh my goodness. Well, can we go through really quickly what how we'll be spending our 4 weeks together? Because again, 4 weeks, we're going to spend 60 minutes together on Fridays. It's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on Friday, starting on May 31st for 4 Fridays. And so each week we're going to be looking at some star medicine, the astrology of the sky. Then we'll be looking at sacred medicine, both animal medicine as well as plant medicine. So in week one, we're going to be looking at believing in your message and the star medicine of Jupiter entering Gemini. Asha, do you want to share a little bit about deer and rose medicine for that week one?
Yeah, so deer comes in with that gentleness and self-compassion and unwinding the inner critic. So we'll really be connecting with that. And then using rose in a little ritual or ceremony as well to heal some of those parts. We're gonna focus on healing some of those parts so that we can come into alignment.
Ooh, I love rose. Week two, we have our new moon in Gemini. And so we'll be looking at creating a new cycle of igniting your voice. Sacred medicine, we have bear and cedar.
Okay. So for that week, we're going to be working with finding your courage. Bear really helps with that career, that courageous connection to your heart. Pushing you past those fearful thoughts and setting up your space to stand your ground. And then Cedar also does similar things in that way of protecting your voice as well from perhaps any outside influences and making it really clear so the people that you want to hear you will.
Oof, love it. Week three, Sun goes into Mercury. Sun and Mercury meet up in the sky so that we can speak our truth. And sacred medicine will be harnessing in Thunderbird and Peppermint.
Mhm. So Thunderbird is that visionary and that cycle breaker and that one that moves mountains truly. So this is really going to be the initiation and the activation of all that has been waiting within you, right? In your bones and your blood and your sacred waters. And of course, peppermint is such an alive medicine and it helps at initiation. So we'll be working with that medicine as well.
And then we wrap things up on week four, where we have our full moon in Capricorn, as well as a celebration of our June solstice with the sun moving into Cancer. The sacred medicine we'll be working with is bison and strawberry.
Yes, it's the strawberry time. It's National Indigenous Day that day in Canada. And bison brings in that abundance too. So as you're speaking about the roar, how can we offer it to the world and have reciprocity too, so that our voice is met with that abundance and that openness and that spaciousness. And then of course, strawberry is the heartberry. So it's bringing in that unconditional love our way.
Oh, this is so good. Oh my gosh, I totally want to do roar.
Me too.
So if you wanted to join us again, for 4 Fridays in a row, starting on May 31st, you can sign up at starpowered.com/roar. Roar, ROAR. And if you also wanted to go deeper, we have 10 spots to have mini readings with both Asha and myself, where you get to do a healing reading with Asha. And then with me, we'll be taking a look at your natal chart and taking a look at how Jupiter will be transiting your chart as it moves into Gemini.
I love it so much. Yes, I can't wait for those folks to come forward.
Yes. What else do you want to let them know, Asha, about us working together and our time together with Roar?
Oh goodness, I feel like it's going to just really be an experience, and you're going to come away um, feeling different. I have this sense you're going to come away feeling different, feeling more aligned somehow, and trusting that you are meant to deliver this message. You are meant to roar, and that you have the confidence now to bring your whisper to that place.
Mm, I love it. It's just time. It's time for us to all share our voices. Gemini is Jupiter and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius. It is really time for the people to rise up and share your voice. So please join us again, starpower.com/roar. And Asha, thank you so much for joining me again. I just love having you here, just all the time. Come on.
Oh, thank you for having me. I know it got super dark, just thundering. So the Thunderbirds have arrived. So they've arrived as we finish up. Thank you so much, as always. I'm so grateful to be here.
Yes. Well, if you want to find out more about Asha Frost, you can find Asha on her website at ashafrost.com, and your Instagram, which is an amazing Instagram. Is it asha.frost
Yeah, that's right.
on Instagram? So thank you again, Asha. And thank you if you listened to this episode all the way till now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time. Bye. As a
Bye.
human design projector, my energy shines more brightly because of people like you who share my work. If you enjoy this podcast and want to help build a movement of innovative astrology and leadership and spark the intuitive revolution, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, or better yet, share this podcast with your change-making besties. We will all shine brighter together as we create the future we want to see.